All right, y'all, welcome back to Combat Arms channel. So today we're doing something a little bit different, and this is something that one of y'all actually recommended to me, and I just thought I thought it was an awesome idea. So I'm doing a tier list, and you might have seen tier list videos all throughout YouTube, but I'm doing a tier list of the U.S. military's infantry weapons, and I also threw a few others in there. So like maybe like an AK, PKM, I think are in there. So I threw in a few other firearms, but basically the stipulations are I need to be familiar with these weapons and I need to have a good understanding whether of me utilizing the weapons or implementing them or whatever it is. So I'll give my reasoning for why I want to put it on a certain tier. And I have some pretty strong opinions on firearms and just guns and weapons in general because I've used a bunch and I know what I prefer. So yeah, it should be interesting. Again, this is a really awesome idea. And it'd be cool to do sort of similar videos like this in the future if you guys have any other recommendations for any other tier lists that we can do. But yeah, this should be fun. So we're going to switch over to the webcam and yeah, we'll do it. I'll put it up on Photoshop and then we'll take it from there. So should be fun. Okay, so here we have all of the guns. So let me just rename this. So you can see I pretty much just photoshopped a bunch of pictures that I found online. So we have a bunch of different weapons. So on the left here we have like assault rifles, battle rifles, stuff that you would see the normal like riflemen, infantrymen use. Here we have more of automatic weapons, machine guns. Then we move into grenade launchers. Then we have launchers. We have shotguns, pistols. And we have submachine guns and a couple sniper rifles as well. So let us start with the assault rifles, or whatever you want to call it. I think assault rifle is a proper term for an actual military rifle. So we'll start with the good old reliable. So the M4. Now I've also done like, if I had I used the M4, but I've also used the M4A1. And I've used a bunch of different M16s. I've used a bunch of different AKs. So I'll just go with either the best or the most generic of whatever I'm talking about. So I've used the M4 and the M4A1. I like the A1 a little bit more just because it's full auto. And yeah, it's just nice to have the full auto. So I'm going to be a little bit biased here. I'm already going towards the B and the A, but I think I'm just going to start off with throwing it in the B because overall it's a nice rifle, but it's not anything spectacular. There's definitely some improvements I think could be made on it. But yeah, actually, yeah, we'll throw that. We'll throw it in A, okay? We'll do A because it is a nice rifle, to be honest. All right, now we'll move to the M16. So the M16, again, I love the M16. I started off with the M16. It was the first weapon I actually shot. So it is awesome. However, it is extremely long. The stock isn't really collapsible. It's kind of bulky. So I think the M16 is going to be going in B because overall it's basically like the M4 but just not as convenient, a little bit easier to shoot I think in my opinion. So now let's move over, of course, legendary AK-47. So I've used a bunch of different AK variants. And I just like the AK-47 a little bit more. I think it's more iconic. Now, there's a huge debate online with AR-15 versus AK-47 and all that good stuff. But I think the AK-47 is, I don't know. I'm thinking C honestly because accuracy really not that great. Again, we're just talking about the generic AK-47. So there's a bunch of nicer models. The wood, I mean, yeah, it's kind of durable, but I have seen the stocks crack. I mean, it's generally just a little bit awkward and heavy and clunky, but of course it's extremely reliable and it's very proven. So I think I'm gonna have to throw it at. It's gonna be C. It's definitely gonna be C. And a lot of people will disagree with me, and a lot of people will say that it shouldn't go above M16. But I think I will be way more lethal with the M16 than I would be with the AK. And that's just me. So now we'll move on. So this is an interesting one. This is the X95. So this is actually the X95 Micro, which is what I used in Israel. I also owned my own personal X95. So I think it's an awesome firearm. However, the controls are pretty decent. The X95 is a little bit better than the standard Tavor, but I mean, it's just a little bit weird. The trigger, not that great, just because it is a bullpup. Now, it being short is very, very convenient, but for some reason, whenever I shot the X95, I don't know, maybe it's just because it is a bullpup, but whenever I'd be shooting it, I would have like gases or something just start getting into my eyes and making my eyes tear up. And then when I was shooting it, I'd also see the heat waves coming off of the barrel. I'm sure there's a better word to say that, but it was also a little bit hard to see whenever you see all the heat coming off of the muzzle and everything. It's just really weird, but I think overall it's pretty good, but I think I'm gonna have to throw it at a B tier. Now, it is an awesome weapon, but it's really not that special in my opinion. Okay, so the SCAR. I have not used the SCAR 17. I've only used the SCAR 16. And I think it's pretty awesome. It is a little bit weird, and it's got some finicky stuff like the reciprocating charging handle. Not really a huge fan of. The stock, a lot of people hate it, but I didn't have any issues with it. I think it just looks weird because a lot of people say it looks like an UGG boot. But I think overall the Mark 16 is pretty solid. So I'm gonna have to throw it about on par with the M4. So we'll throw it over by the M4. Again, it's very accurate. It's very modular. It's comfortable to use. And overall the controls are nice. So yeah, I guess I'm gonna have to throw it at an A, maybe a little bit higher than the M4 if we're doing stuff like that. Okay, so as the assault rifle stand, that's basically where it is. I might move stuff later on. That's totally fine, but yeah, we'll move on. So the PKM, this is an interesting weapon. Not really that accurate, to be honest, and very heavy. The stock is super awkward. The bipod, it kind of sucks. And yeah, overall, it's really not that great. I don't think it's as easy to use. And I think it's some of the parts feel a little bit cheap, to be honest. So I'm gonna honestly throw the PKM at a D tier. It's pretty good for what it is, but it's really not that great, and it kind of bugged me a lot. Okay, so the Negev. This is I think it's the NG7, but this is an Israeli machine gun, and this thing is just insane. The rate of fire is awesome. I had a lot of fun shooting this. Now, it was a little bit finicky. It wasn't really the most comfortable to use. I think there's a newer model out there, but the one that I used just didn't feel that great. So I think naturally I'm going to have to throw that at about a B. It is an awesome weapon. I didn't have any issues with it jamming, but it's just a little bit weird to use at times. It didn't feel as natural, but maybe just because I'm used to the SAW. So the SAW is an awesome weapon if you treat it correctly, because the SAW can be extremely finicky if you don't clean it, but it's just badass. So I'm gonna have to throw the SAW at, I think I'm gonna have to throw the SAW at a B as well. It is solid, but I mean, the rate of fire is good. It's relatively compact. It works okay, but sometimes some optics can be a little bit finicky. So really depending on the optic will really change your effectiveness with it. And that can be said with a lot of different things, but I don't know, it was kind of annoying having to use the SAW with certain optics. Overall, I think it's a B. Good rate of fire, relatively decent reliability, but really not that great. The reliability was a huge issue. All right, so the M27. Now this is going to be the normal rifle for the Marine Corps infantry. It's going to be replacing the M4, but as an automatic weapon, which is what it was basically integrated as. It was kind of annoying. So I think I'm going to throw it at a high A. So as an assault rifle, it would be an awesome rifle. As an automatic rifle, it's kind of trash because we didn't really utilize any drums with it, so you had to reload all the time. It had some pretty gnarly recoil. It is a piston driven weapon system, but for some reason the recoil was kind of annoying to deal with. The stock is a little bit bulky, but it's relatively comfortable. Overall, it's very modular, it's very ergonomic, extremely durable, and extremely reliable, and also very accurate. So I'll throw it at an A. As an automatic weapon, it'd probably be like a B, but as an overall weapon system, I'd definitely throw it as like a high A because it is an awesome rifle. Okay, oh man, the M240. This, I think, has to immediately go in S tier, and there's a few reasons for that. Rate of fire, really not that great, but for what it is, the rate of fire is exactly what it needs to be in my opinion. Could be a little bit faster, but overall I think it's fine. It is heavy, however, it's extremely durable. I have rarely had any malfunctions with the 240 for whatever reason. It behaves a lot better than the SAW does, and it's just a powerhouse. Honestly, I really don't have anything bad to say about the 240. Relatively accurate. You don't really see many people complaining about the accuracy of a 240, and yeah, that thing just does work, especially when a SAW won't do work. Okay, Mark 19. So if y'all aren't familiar with the Mark 19, this is a 40 millimeter, so it shoots grenades like the M203 and the M320. So this is a grenade launcher machine gun. It's a good weapon system, but I think I'm just going to have to throw it at an A tier. Now, it will do a lot of work for you. However, it is kind of clunky. I might actually have to throw this at a B. I'm going to throw it at a high B. So the reason why I'm throwing it here is because it's extremely clunky. The sights, you're not going to really use a sights with a lot of machine guns, and the Mark 19 sights are just garbage. You're not going to want to really waste your time with it too much. So sights are garbage, a little bit clunky, very annoying to use because you have this weird ghost round thing, and I think overall it's just it takes a lot to learn the Mark 19 and it takes a lot to be really proficient with it. So the learning curve is definitely a struggle, but overall it will definitely do work for you. So I'm going to throw it at a B plus. So good weapon, but not that great to use. Okay. M203, that's an S tier. That is easily an S tier. So the trigger pull on the M203, I think, is about maybe 3 or 4 pounds, maybe 5 pounds. So the trigger pull, yeah, it's not that great, but it is pretty solid for a grenade launcher. You don't really want anything too heavy of a trigger on the grenade launcher. It's extremely easy to use. You literally just have a latch, you pop it open, throw it around, shoot the round, and then if you want to open it up and change the round out, you can do that very quickly, very easily. The holds are pretty easy. You can either hold it by the tube and the magazine well, or you can sort of just hold it by the rifle pistol grip and the magazine well. So holds, very intuitive. It really doesn't feel unnatural to use. The safety is easy to use. That's right in front of the trigger. Very easy to reload. Very easy to be accurate with, especially with some of the newer advanced sights. It's just an awesome thing to have. Okay, the M320 grenade launcher. This thing, I hate it so much. And I think that's because every time I've used the 320, it was mounted on an M4. Through the window. So it looked like this. And you can imagine when this thing is mounted on M4, it almost extends past your magazine. It extends so much. It's super bulky. It makes the M4 very front heavy. In my opinion, it's harder to load or reload faster. The trigger pull is 10 pounds, And whenever you're trying to shoot a grenade like 350 meters or whatever, 400 meters, if you're really pushing it out there and you have a super heavy trigger, you're going to be pushing that off a lot. And it's just huge pain in the butt. Maybe if you're using it by itself, it might be a little bit better and a little bit, more easy to pull out and use. But yeah, not a huge fan. I'm going to have to throw this at a C, to be honest. That trigger pull is garbage. It's not as easy to reload. Of course, both of these are super accurate because it's a grenade launcher. But yeah, super bulky, garbage trigger pull. Literally just a 203, but worse in my opinion. Okay, now we have the M32. And a lot of people will incorrectly call this the Mark 32. I have no idea why, but this is an M32. And I gotta say, this thing is kind of garbage. So I think I'm going to have to throw it at a D. Now, the thing with having that weapon system, it's never your primary. I mean, at least when I use it, someone had an M4 and then they also had this annoying thing. So you'd have this thing slung on your back and you can see it's like this wide. So it just destroys your back. Like you can feel it whenever it's slung on your back. It's super bulky. It's kind of annoying to reload because you'd have to pop it open to the side, put the rounds in, and then rotate it to like wind the actual like cylinder. And yeah, super annoying to use. It wasn't really that accurate because we never really had any good optics on it. So I think every time we used it, we would just shoot it with no optics. So you're just trying to generally see where it impacts. The stock is kind of cheap and doesn't really hold its position very well. The safety is very clunky. And honestly, that's like a low D. That thing is garbage. I really don't like it. It's just a pain in the butt. And whenever you shoot the 6 rounds, that's pretty much it. It's like you're almost never going to reload that in a timely fashion. Okay, so now we're moving on to some of the launchers. Now this is the SMAW. So in the Marines, this is what our assaultmen would use a lot. So not really that accurate. It's a smooth bore. You had this weird, like, I don't know, you'd have to shoot you don't have to shoot a spotting round, but you'd almost always have to shoot a spotting round for training. And it's just kind of a weird thing to add on a launcher. I don't know. Assaultmen might say differently, but I think overall it's just generally a C. Pretty effective, pretty easy to use, but it wasn't really that accurate, and that might have just been the assaultmen that were using it, but I would see them miss all the time, and I think they would rarely actually get a solid hit with the SMAW, except for, I think I knew one Marine that was actually good with that thing. And then we'll move to the Gustav, Carl G. Now this is a recoilless rifle. It's got rifling. You can use it multiple times. It's not super bulky, so I think this is going to have to be a high A because it's just an awesome weapon, accurate, easy to use, and yeah, you can use it multiple times. So I think it's going to have to be an A. The RPG, this thing is hot garbage. This is easily an E tier. So RPG, I mean, you can just see it's not ergonomic whatsoever. The RPGs are kind of finicky, especially if you're not used to using them. It's very heavy and bulky. It's extremely long, especially when you have the RPG actually in it. It just feels super weird to balance it sometimes. If you have an optic with it, it's a lot better, but even still, it's extremely inaccurate. The backblast is extremely annoying to account for a lot of the time. And overall, it's just kind of a piece of trash when you're comparing it to other stuff. So the AT4. Now, you can only use the AT4 one time, and then you have to dispose of it, but it is very easy to use. Once you know how to get past the safeties, it's an awesome weapon. It's generally not too heavy, and I think it does its job pretty well. So I think I'm going to have to throw this at a high C, maybe even a B, but it's good, not that great, and also a little bit weird to use it sometimes because it's not really like it's sort of just grabbing onto this front end, like where the sling is, and then reaching over. So it's just kind of awkward to use, to be honest. So the LAW. All right, I'm going to have some favoritism with this thing because it is an absolute beast. It's super light, very, very easy to use. It feels like a toy, honestly, how easy it is to use. Not as much firepower as the AT4, but you can have easily like multiple LAWs in one squad. And these things are just very, very handy to do a little shock and awe. So I think with the AT4 being like, we'll put the AT4 at a low B, but I think the LAW is going to have to be a solid B. Again, a little bit like awkward to use. Sometimes it would be a little bit finicky, but overall it's just an awesome thing to pull out and have an option of using. Okay, so let's move on to shotguns. Now, people think generally with shotguns, you're going to be going around clearing buildings and whatnot using a shotgun, but more than likely that's not the case. So the Remington 870 and the Mossberg 500 we have on here, I've only used those as breaching weapons. So we'll start with the Mossberg 500. Okay, it's pretty light and it's pretty reliable, but it's really not that great, and you're not going to have the option really or want to use it for anything else. Now it does have the safety on top, which is convenient for breaching, but overall this thing is literally just a breaching tool. So I think I'm just going to have to throw it at a C because it's great, it does its job, really not that spectacular. The 870 I think is a little bit smoother, it just feels smoother. So I'm going to throw this at a low B. So we'll try and make room right here. The 870 is great. There's a few different options. The safety is by the trigger, so not as easy to see when you're breaching, but it feels intuitive, feels a little bit less clunky. More than likely, you would be able to utilize the 870 a little bit more effectively than most of the Mossbergs, because most of the Mossbergs will look like this, or they'll be super old and beat up. But I think the 870 is just generally a bit smoother. Now the M1014 easily going in S tier because one, it's not a pump shotgun, it's semi-automatic, so you can do work with the M1014. I think it fits 8 shells in the magazine tube, which is about standard, but I think it's a little bit more than the 870 and 500. So 8 rounds is very good, not including, I think that's 8 plus 1 in the chamber, but it is extremely reliable, very comfortable to shoot because it's got the Argo gas system, makes it very reliable. The buttstock is pretty nice. I think overall it's just amazing. If you did want to use this as an actual combat shotgun, which is what it was implemented for, utilizing this as an actual weapon system, you would do very well because the 870 has some decent sights. The Mossberg really just has like a little bead at the front, but this has ghost ring sights, and I think they have tritium in them. But either way, they're very, very easy to use, very comfortable shotgun, and it's just extremely reliable. I love that thing so much. So I might be a little biased there, but it is what it is. So we'll move on to pistols, and we'll move to the M9A1. So this is pretty much the U.S. military's pistol for, I don't know, it must have been almost 4 decades. So this thing did a lot of work throughout its time in the U.S. military. It's being replaced now by the SIG M17 and the M18, and a lot of other units use other guns, but I think I'm going to have to throw it at an A. So a lot of people hate the Beretta because they think it's heavy, they think it's just weird, it's clunky, it breaks a lot, but in reality, the Beretta will go several decades before having the locking block break, which is generally what happens. You know, the locking block is just underneath the barrel. That's usually what breaks, but that's because they last so long. They are very accurate, very accurate. The sights are very easy to use. It's just very comfortable. It is all steel. So some people might think it is heavy, but I don't think it's that heavy. And because it is all steel, the recoil is so easy to it's so easy to snap those sights back on targets. The recoil is very minimal. So I'm definitely going to throw that an A tier because I just love the Beretta. Okay, so this is the SIG M18. So this is what I have used most recently, and I hate this thing so much, and I will explain that. So I'm gonna throw this thing at a D because I hate it so much. Okay, so yeah, it is modular. You can change out the frames, whatever. It's got a Picatinny rail. Again, whatever. The M9 had that as well. The manual safety is extremely annoying to use because it's not as positive, and it's just a little bit harder to feel than the Beretta. The Beretta was very easy to flick on and off. It was just very easy to manipulate. But the SIGs, even like, I get it, they're newer, but it's just not that easy to actually manipulate because it's just a little bit smaller, a little bit more low profile, which is generally something you think you want. But I'm not a huge fan of manual safeties. So if I have to have one, then I want one that I can actually manipulate. Now, these things, the sights are garbage. They're extremely wide, and they're not very accurate because they're like combat sights. They're very thick. You can't really get like a marksmanship style grouping with those sights. So even as slow as I want to shoot with the M18, I can never really get that good of groupings. And they advertise it as like unprecedented accuracy. It's like, what does that even mean? It's like it's so trash that whenever they see a decent grouping at some point or another, they think it's unprecedented. And yeah, sometimes I can't put the magazine in for whatever reason. Sometimes you can't disassemble it. And you can try and cock it, release the trigger. I don't know, whatever it is. Like sometimes you just can't flip the disassembly lever down, even with the magazine out. So I don't know what's going on, but the quality control on that thing is trash. Okay, I'm done talking about it. I hate it. Okay, Glock 17. Now, I'm not a huge fan of Glocks just because they just feel kind of weird. They're not really that ergonomic, but these things are very, very accurate, very solid. You do need to get comfortable with the trigger itself because it is kind of a crappy trigger and it is striker fired. But I think overall it's extremely reliable, very easy to use. It doesn't have a manual safety, which I like. So this is going to be a high B for sure. Glocks are just awesome weapons. Really not the best for accuracy and the best for a lot of different things, but they will definitely do work for you. Okay, so a couple sniper rifles. I don't really have that much experience with sniper rifles or designated marksman rifles. So we'll talk about the M110. Now, M110 is very clean looking. The optics that generally come with these are pretty solid. Overall, the bipod is good. I think generally you use like the Harris bipod on it. With the suppressor, it's awesome, but it's also extremely long and can be a little bit cumbersome at times. But overall, it's a nice weapon. So this, I think, is going to be a B tier, like a high B, because it's generally accurate, it's semi-automatic, and it does what you want, just a little bit better than a lot of other weapons. Okay, the M2010. Now this is 300 Winchester Magnum, which is just it's crazy. It's like shooting a freaking laser beam. Because this thing is extremely accurate. It has so much stopping power, and it's so comfortable to use. It's so ergonomic. The suppressor works awesome with it. The bipod is awesome. The stock is super modular. The optics are usually very solid. This is easily S tier. I love that weapon system so much. I don't have the Beretta on here or anything crazy because I don't really have really much experience with those. But I mean, if you guys want to throw your experience with any other weapon systems on here, by all means. Okay, the P90. All right, you guys already know I love the P90. Huge fan of it. Okay, so I want to put it in S, but I don't think I can. I think I'm going to have to throw it at a low A because it's not that easy to reload. It's kind of a little bit weird. You can get like pretty good practice with it to get it to be relatively easy to reload, but it's never going to be that quick as some other weapons. The trigger, really not that great, but it's got basically no recoil. It shoots a 5.7 round, which, you know, you can fit 50 in the magazine, which is insane. It's awesome ammunition, awesome ammo capacity. So 5.7 is awesome rounds. Huge fan of it. Kind of expensive to shoot if you want to do that on your own, but it's very short, very easy to manipulate. It drops the casings on the bottom, so I think it's easily a low A. And then the last one is the MP5. So, of course, this is very iconic. I'm definitely just going to immediately throw this. I want to throw it in S, but I'm going to throw it at a high A. The reason for that is it is also kind of hard to reload. You can sort of train to just do it quickly, but it's just a little bit slower than some other weapon systems. Extremely reliable, low recoil, accurate, very easy to use, very intuitive, just absolutely legendary weapon, very modular. You can see this in many different shapes and sizes. So I think that's, you can see I love guns, so I'm not going to throw them too low. If I were to throw anything at an F, I mean, the RPG is kind of trash, but I don't think it's an F. The M32 I really hate, but it is generally somewhat useful sometimes, so I can't really throw anything at an F. But if you guys know of any weapon systems you might throw at an F, you might throw some of these down on the F, but yeah, if you can think of any weapon systems you might want to throw on the F tier, you can put that down in the comments section. But yeah, let me know how you guys think about my tier list and my ratings. Again, I have more experience with some of these weapons than others, so that might have an effect with how I rated them. And again, sometimes I just had a bad experience with some things, but yeah, I do not like the SIG. I don't know who decided on the SIG. I do not like it, but yeah, let me know what you guys think about my rating here. I think overall it's pretty accurate. I don't think I would really change anything. So I mean, yeah, I might change my mind in the future, but overall I think this is a pretty solid rating for me personally. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. If you want to add any weapons, if you want to think of any other themes you want to do for a tier list video, this was a lot of fun. I didn't really try and think through any of this. I just, you know, picked a bunch of weapons that I know I shot. So these are weapons that I used in the military. There's a bunch of different weapons that I shot in the civilian world, and some of those are much better than stuff I've used in the military, naturally. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. If there are any other recommendations for tier lists, I would love to hear those, because this was a lot of fun. I do appreciate the fan who recommended this. Very, very fun to do and relatively easy to do because I just throw this stuff in Photoshop. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. This is very, very cool. But yeah, I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hopefully I didn't trigger any of y'all out there with how I rated some of these weapons. Hopefully one of these weapons aren't your S tier or your favorite weapons, because yeah, I think they definitely deserve to be down there. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Regardless, I do love seeing those comments, and I love seeing the support. And of course, you guys have some awesome ideas for videos. So again, I do appreciate it. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video. That is it for this one. So I will see y'all in the next one.